All right, it is 8:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you for coming. For those of you that do not know or have tried to forget, my name is Rob Kleino. I'm a curriculum consultant here at Heartland in science and technology. We do have one other science consultant here. Peg, Peg Christensen. She serves mainly central and south Heartland area. We also have several technology consultants from Heartland. Would you please stand up? So they serve the various regions around. So depending on where you are and have technology things you'd like to work with, these are some of the folks that could certainly help you do that. Today's session, as I said, the agenda can be found at the shortened URL that's on the two whiteboards on the side. We will also have a hashtag if you are into social media and wish to share that way. It's hashtag HAEA-TIC. We also, in the back of the room, have some makerspace devices that Heartland has started to gather. And some of our tech folks would be more than happy to talk to you if you have some interest in exploring some of those during our breaks. You didn't come here to hear me, so we will get on with the show. Our first presenter, we're very fortunate to have Mr. Craig Mohr. He teaches at Southeast Polk, and I'll let him share a little bit what he does, and off to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. So, welcome, everyone. I hope you are excited as I am for half day of learning about other people's technology use in the classroom. It's really fun to get together and to see other people and what they do, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to show a couple of things that I do and answer some questions towards the end about my Moodle use in the classroom. Now, for those of you that don't know, which probably aren't too many of you, but Moodle, it's a learning management system, a system that's set up to really provide support to the teacher in the classroom. The reason that I like Moodle so much has to do with its flexibility and its ability to adapt to what I want. There's a lot of learning management systems out there, and those learning management systems are, I'm sure they're very great. You can't know them all. Moodle's the one that I know, and I know that it completely adapts to what I want to use in the classroom. Some see it as maybe too cumbersome, and 3 years ago, I was one of those people. But after 3 years of working with it, I've really come to love the use and the support that Moodle gives me as a teacher. So a couple of things that we're going to go through. This is a Moodle page that I have for my earth science class right now. The way I have it set up obviously can be changed, can be modified. This is what I've come up with to be the best use right now for my students. The first thing here we're going to look at is embedding a Google Calendar. So I imagine most of you use Google Calendars, and this allows me in the morning when I come in 5 minutes, I can have pushed to my students what we're going to do that day or what we've done every day previous. So if we look right now, if I were to go back to the other, to 2015, every month you would see what we've done every day in the classroom. So we'll just click on that quick. Every day we could click on those and see what we did in the classroom. Students are gone, huge advantage to them. It also allows parents to follow along with the course. And that, again, like I said, huge advantage. This is any Google Calendar, but if you click that Google Calendar Plus, it puts it into your Google Calendar. And then as a parent, if they're someone in the workforce, they likely use Google Calendar as well. They click that button, they now have access to what their students are doing every day in the classroom. It's really an aggressive way to communicate, not aggressive, proactive is a better word. Proactive way to communicate with all stakeholders in this. As we scroll down, we can see a couple of other things. Most of the time, I'm going to use a link. Here's an example of a link that I have used to my Google Drive. So now, every time I update my syllabus, it's automatically updated on my Moodle page. A huge contributing factor to getting into Moodle was redundancy. It frustrated me as a teacher that I had to do this, and really I was just doing the same thing over and over. I had to get parents' information. I had to get students the access to the most recent syllabus. Every year, you're making a new one and printing it. Well, this allows me to go in, and like I said before, 5 minutes is what it takes. 5 minutes, I can have a new link to all people involved. If we look right here, this is another advantage. You can upload assignments right into Moodle. This allows me as a teacher not to take stuff home, but to go home and log onto my computer, grade things like I want. When I grade them, I can blindly grade things. This isn't a good example of that, but I can grade them without knowing who submitted that assignment. This is one that you can't know because they have to sign it. But let's say question number 14 and 15 on a test are essay questions. They're going to type in answers. When they type those answers in, I can blindly grade, which means I go into the grading screen, I look at an answer, I assign it a value, I hit next, I do the same thing with that. I have no clue who wrote them. It gives you an unbiased approach to grading, and that's another thing that I really liked about it. With like I said, its adaptability and the way that you can get around some of the things that are tough to get around in education. I'm just showing you this as an example. In a little bit, we'll go into some of the help things that we have and the AEA has for us. But if we look at, this is our first unit that we go through. Again, right here, I have embedded a Google Doc for the purpose for the unit. What is it, every 3 or 4 days you have a purpose, roughly? And now if I want to change these purposes, I can go into the Google Doc, modify them, it automatically, next time you hit refresh, this page will be refreshed. So I'm not going in and editing the settings all the time on this page. Don't get me wrong, I do that, but it's not all the time. I'm going to switch to student view quick. So as a student, this is what they're going to see when they log on. It's a little less, maybe a little more user-friendly for students. And there's ways to improve this. We're looking at how we can make the Moodle experience more interactive. Really, how can we change themes? How can we change stuff so that it doesn't necessarily just look like a laundry list? But it's still, as this, it's very useful for students. So here's a 5-minute video that we watch in class. We write some evidence statements about that video, and then we look at some evidence for the Big Bang. Here are 3 activities that are checked by what Moodle calls a quiz. A quiz is just any time you're assessing. You can call it whatever you want. We call them concept checks. So this allows us to do something, to check something, to do something, to check something. And what we're working on right now as a class, me and one of the other guys that teach this, we're looking to align each of these with an outcome, or we're going to put them in as standards. You can assess 1 standard per quiz, which means I can give a student a report on the 4 standards of, or 3 standards, excuse me, of this unit before they take the test. The report would be generated from these 3 concept checks, and it will tell them how they're doing on each standard. We have complete control over how we set these quizzes up. Personally, I set them up as unlimited attempts. I'm only going to take your last score. Some kids don't like that, but I tell them it's your most recent knowledge. If I just took your highest score, you'd take it, 4 times, and then you just start guessing on them and see if you got better. If I take your most recent, you're going to try each time. Again, like I said, it's completely what you want to make of it, though. You have control over those settings. I also want to stress that my first Moodle page looked nothing like this. This isn't something that you just, a couple hours later, you have this whipped up, okay? This is something that you start very simple. It doesn't look that good. It's maybe a little bit usable. You do it again next year. Looks much better, much more usable. This is my 3rd iteration of this. I'll do it again next summer. I'll make a new style of, what I think will work better and where to go from there. Now we're going to look a little bit at, this is a Moodle course that I made the AEA has something very similar. This was for professional development at Southeast Polk. These are resources that help us as Moodle users to use Moodle more effectively. Last night I was just reading about some things, and the best part, this is a good picture, the best part about the Moodle, it fits together like Legos. If you want something, there's a plugin for it. If there's not a plugin for it, it can be coded. Not saying you can code it, I can't code it, but I can read, and in the evenings, I'll do a decent amount of reading about what is available on Moodle. Just last night, I sent Evan a message about 7 plugins that I thought would benefit the classroom. These are all things that we have control over. If we want, one of the options was to export a quiz as a PDF. So an issue I was running into, students have limited technology use in their IEP or 504. Okay, that's fine. But then I have to go in and recreate a quiz for them. What if I could just export a quiz from Moodle as a PDF, print it, there's a hard copy. That plugin exists. It's very helpful to be able to do things that, at least in my mind, they should be automated. These aren't things that people should have to do. Coding exists, or I guess plugins exist, so we can limit not what we have to do, but the tasks that aren't really teaching, they aren't really educating, they're just tasks to complete. So this first page is an example of how another way you can set Moodle up. Like I said, this was set up as a professional development opportunity where we had a bunch of options each day, and each day teachers got to choose what they did. In order to earn credit for what they did, they had to have a deliverable, so they had to make something that was usable. In this case, we have a video, that's the first link. We have some notes. We have to post to a forum. Once you've done these 3 things, now you can take the quiz or assessment. The usability in the classroom is big because now we can say to kids, this is I'm sure other districts have worked on this, but growth versus fixed mindset. This allows a student to not, or to realize working harder is likely going to benefit their learning. Instead of saying, here are the 4 units or 4 subunits we're going to do and then a test, now we can say, well, you're going to do the first one, and you're not going to go to the second one until you've done the first one. If you don't ever get done with that first one, you don't ever get to the test. You can individualize your interaction with them. So you go to your reports, and you can run a report on a quiz. Tell me the kids who haven't taken this quiz. Okay, so that means those are the kids today that I need to go talk to, and I need to see what's going on with them. Why aren't you at this point? What do we need to do to get you to this point? It also allows on the flip side. So a kid is cruising through your curriculum. As long as you have it set up, and like I said, it takes time, but as long as you have it set up, they get done with the first unit in the first week. Great, go to the second unit. If you can do this and you can succeed on your own, there's no reason to have, preventative interaction. Think of it kind of like going to the doctor. You don't just go to the doctor every day. You go to the doctor when something's wrong. Well, a classroom could be something similar. What if we just went to we learned every day, and then we went to the teacher when something was wrong? You can be so much more effective with your time. It's not possible to say, in 45 minutes, I'm going to get to 30 students, and I'm going to talk with each of them for 84 seconds. Well, what if we just talk to the ones that needed it for like 3 or 4 minutes, and the ones that can do it on their own, let them run? This allows that kind of environment in the classroom. Now, if we look at down here, this is an example of a quiz that has limitations from above, okay? So this has, 3, 6, 9, 8 or 9 limitations. You can't take that quiz until you've done those 8 or 9 things. Once you take this quiz is limited to how many times you can retake. It's also limited to, if you score this score, you don't need to retake. This is where we provide individualized feedback. Within each quiz, you have access to boundaries. And from those boundaries, you can provide specific feedback to the student. An example of how we use this, and I'll show you this in a minute, but an example of how we use this is a student takes a quiz. They score, let's say, a 30%. Feedback is, tomorrow we're going to talk in class. They're not in trouble. We just want to figure out why they're at 30%. Let's say another student takes it and gets 70%. Their feedback is, we need to redo this, and we need to figure out what we didn't know the first time around. But I'm going to put it on the student to do that. Let's say another student gets 90. Their feedback is, you already know this stuff. Great job. Here's the next activity. So it's not allowing, it's kind of controlling pace based on outcome of individual assessment. Like I said, I'll show you that one. So this is just a quiz I made as an example for feedback for students. This is the feedback we gave them based on their outcome. So here, there's a score of 9.9 out of 10. Their feedback is you have this stuff. Click here for next activity. This takes them to the next activity that we will be working on in class. Then you can have the same thing after this. You can have an embedded quiz. You can have feedback based on their score on that quiz. So it's really a stepwise ensuring success before allowing students to move on. There are other pieces of feedback. So if you score below a 70 on this, for instance, it would, or below a 90 but above a 70, it would say, hey, you did a nice job. If you would like to do this again, you can take it again. But in order to take it again, you have to interact with this. This is the actual quiz. And like I said, it's just an example quiz. There's a bunch of different question types here. But you'll notice these help buttons underneath the question. This is the second thing we're working on this year with all of our questions in our question bank. We have roughly 250, so it takes time. But let's say, actually, which one did I get wrong? So I got this last one wrong. Something about the 38th parallel. Okay. So if I said, well, it's not the Vietnam War, let me go down here and see which one it could be. You click on this help button. It's a link to a site, a video. You can link to EduCreations, which is you making a video. You can link to whatever you would like. The link shows or gives students access to content. So now if they need to read about the Korean War, there's probably something in here about the 38th parallel. It was the Korean War, right? Okay. But again, it doesn't allow students to say, I didn't know what to do. I scored poorly and I didn't know where to go from there. It doesn't allow teachers to say, well, I should say this. It allows teachers to say, I provide individualized feedback to students based on outcomes. We're automating something that it should be automated. It's automatable to tell a program, if this is your score, this is what you need to do. Another attempt, if this is your score, this is what you need to do. And over enough time, improving the use of it is going to allow each student to succeed at their own pace. I mean, I'm not saying you want a whole high school setup like this or a whole middle school setup like this, but if every teacher had this resource, imagine what students can do and how quickly they can move through it. Really, at the end of this, a student should be able to print a complete report of all standards that I was asking students to have and their individual score on each standard. I mean, imagine if a student could walk out of a high school and say, this is how I did on every standard that they've asked me to learn. Right now they leave and everybody's got different holes. Nobody knows where anybody's at. They just say, hey, here's a diploma. This will allow much more individualized and much more differentiated instruction at all levels. I can't say, I've never used it at elementary. I would think that there's plenty of use of it, maybe not quite as much text use, maybe more embedding things on top of each other. And here's an activity you can do, now go do it, or something like that. One other thing I want to show you here Yep. The questions. So there are, and this is not by any means all of them, but this is a good indication of how you write a question or what types of questions are available. If we look at this first one is merely a number answer. So if I go to edit my question, this is how I'm going to write a question. Now, if you noticed, I went directly from a student attempt to editing a question. Once I edit that question, it's going to be edited for all future users. I don't have to go in to a document, change something, reprint, remember what version I'm at, look in my folder and see I've got 14 versions from the last 14 years. You guys know where I'm at with that. And you look at it and you're like, I'm lost. This allows you just to real-time do stuff. And when it's edited, now it's edited forever. Like I said, it's just a number question. So I write the question here. That number always stays the same. Here's my feedback. That's my help button. And you could have that be your logo button. I mean, it could be anything. Here's my answer. I'm giving them this error. So 1 with 20 zeros in front of it, not much error. It's giving them 100% of the points. If I want 2 options, and one of the options I want to give them 50%, let's say they cut that number in half. I say, well, that's pretty good. You got a right idea. But in order for you to have the right answer, I could have certain feedback. So if I added another answer where it was 50% of the right answer, I could say in feedback, did you divide by 4 instead of 2? Or you could have feedback based on answers, common answers that are given. And again, you don't set this up in a day. But over the course of a teaching career, imagine if we can constantly step on everybody's shoulders, and then in 20 years, we have great Moodle sites with great questions that are available to everyone.
Can we take a peek at the tabs, the unit handling?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me actually go up here.
What was the question, Craig?
Can we take a look at the tabs? So I'm going to expand all, which allows every one of those tabs to open at once. So if I scroll down here to unit handling, so you have a couple of options. Right now, not using units. I can make them optional, I can make them mandatory. Your choice. If you make them mandatory, you don't have to make them as a typed. You can make them from a drop-down menu. So you could say, the answer to this is joules. Okay, so in a drop-down menu, I'm going to put joules, I'm going to put meters, and I'm going to put meters per second.
And you came up with those drop-down, or those were ones that were already made for you, already programmed by them?
The options or the drop-down itself?
The options in the drop-down.
You make those. You control the drop-down. It's also nice when I can duplicate a question, and then I can change something about it. Okay? So if I want to have 5 questions, I can duplicate it and change something with having all the other settings the same. Now this is, I'm sorry, we're going to keep working through these. Multiple tries. So there's something called adaptive mode. Adaptive mode allows a student to take a question. If they get it wrong, it gives them feedback that it's wrong instantly and allows them to retake the question. You can set it up for free or with penalties. So let's say I answered this question 14. It's wrong. Feedback says incorrect. I can now retry the question and put in another answer. So let's say I put in the answer of 28. It says wrong, or incorrect, excuse me. I can retry the question, but each time you can set it up for penalties. So maybe after 3 attempts, there's nothing left. So every attempt you lose 33%. You could set it up for 10%, so you have 10 attempts on the question. Again, another way to make it adaptive to what students are, what will help students succeed. You can also see there's hints here. So maybe the first hint, I could say c equals 3.0 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. So speed of light equals 300 million meters per second. Okay, it allows them to have, steps. Your tags, this is where you can put in outcomes. And then down here just tells you the history of it. So Jed is another teacher at Southeast Polk. Jed and I were working on this question. Tells you the first and the last person to have worked on it. You save it, it's a question. It takes time to write these. Right now, when I take a multiple choice test and I make it Moodle, it takes me about 80 seconds a question to go from paper to electronic. I'm a firm believer that a great multiple choice question can address very deep thought. A poorly written multiple choice question doesn't address deep thought. An example might be, so one of them on the Earth and space science, I've got a picture of a star and then a picture of the spectrum the star emits. Then I say, what would the emission spectra look like of this star? And they have 4 options, or 5. I mean, you could have 8 options if you wanted. But what they're doing, yeah, there's a guess factor, and I'll go into a little bit of that in a minute. But really, to get that question right, you have to create the emission spectra, either on a piece of paper or mentally. So you don't have to write questions that are just surface level questions. So they have true false, Moodle has true false multiple choice number, but I want to show you one of the in my mind, one of the great questions. And it might be because I teach physics, but this is the question right here. And this is an example. So I teach AP Physics. One of the questions that, or one of the concepts we go over, if you have a banked corner, there's a certain amount of friction on the road, certain radius of that corner. How quickly can you take that corner without sliding up the corner? You can see here, I have these brackets around letters. By writing it this way, I wrote 100 versions of this question all at the same time. It's called a calculated question. It uses variables. The variables here, my r, my radius, theta, my angle, my coefficient of friction. 3 variables in this question. Now I go down to the answer, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. But the first time you get it, it's almost euphoric. This is the equation to answer that question. Now the reason I use this here was because when we were writing this example test, we were working on the angled or banked turns in AP Physics. So I had already written this question. I just took the question from my course and put it over into this course. If you wanted to do y plus 3 equals x, and give them a value for, y, and say, what's the value of x? You could do that too. I mean, a much simpler version of the same thing, where you're writing 100 versions of a question all at the same time. So now when a kid gets this question, they're going to get one of those 100 versions. We have virtually eliminated cheating. I tell them, talk, that's fine. If you're going to talk and figure the question out, you did learning. That's great. If you're not going to talk and you want to score poorly, that's okay. Now you go back and you learn what happened. What did you do wrong? Now you can go back in and take the test or the quiz. So in my mind, Moodle is a place that allows all of the requests of teachers to be met. You're asked to differentiate. You're asked to give multiple attempts. You're asked to create all these questions. And you say to yourself, it's not possible to do all these things. When you use technology, and that's why you guys are here, you know this, it's much more attainable to meet all these demands and to do them with a pretty high level of success. Another one with this, if we go, they have the same tags here. The next screen is going to allow me to, we won't worry about this one, but the next screen allows me to set parameters on each of the variables. So now the parameter I set for my theta, I didn't want kids to get a theta of 90. You're not going to take a 90-degree turn. Okay, so that doesn't make sense. So my theta is set between 10 and 20. So my angle is somewhere between 10 and 20. That's really, in terms of civil engineering, that's the angle of a road. You're never going to find a road that's not that. If you are, you're probably not going to be on the road very long. I guess if it's greater than that, not less than that. But your mu value, again, I put constraints on it. I said common road mu values are 0.4 to 0.6. My radius, I don't want people to be taking a radius from here to Omaha. It's a pretty big turn. But that's a reasonable radius, 47 meters. So you can completely put constraints on the parts of these assessments. The next thing I want to go into before we get into some questions is, go here to get there, is how we can use Moodle to get data. Another thing that I've been talking with Evan about, and Denise has been in on this conversation as well, how can we make Moodle look more like, if you've used it, Data Director? Or how can we take a free program and make it essentially do what a very costly program does with the work that I've already put in? So I've already written questions, I've already individualized instruction, I'm differentiating for each kid, I'm allowing kids to move at their own pace. How do I use this program to get usable data? One of the great things about this, if you go into a test, we'll just go into the test we took, that would have been probably middle of September. Need to be a teacher to get here. But this will, I go into my results. And inside of my results, I go to statistics. It's amazing. In terms of math, it's not hard to get a program to do this. You know, standard deviations are just equations. One thing that is popular in education is called discrimination index, education statistics anyway. These are just formulas that are set forth by a computer. I can't do them all. I mean, again, that would take months to do it for one test, but a computer can run these calculations. When I give a test, these are some basic statistics about the test. Personally, don't look at this screen too much. I'll show you what we do look at though. Kurtosis is another one. I've read a little bit about it. I don't know what it means. But again, just some things in education data analysis. What I look at is down here. Every question that I've written, and again, if I want to modify the question, I can hit edit right there. If I don't like something about the question based on the results, I can hit edit, modify, it's now changed forever. It's just, it puts it in a nice, concise place. What I look at though, discrimination index, standard deviation. I'm not saying this is right. This is just the two things that I look at. So what the discrimination index is, that gives you data on a question. Really, is it a good question? And I learned this from my brother when he was in med school at Iowa. He was telling me about how they were using education analysis to evaluate instruction. And he's the one that got me in on discrimination index, so I start reading about it. What discrimination index is, if a student does well on a test, but gets one question wrong, that question is not discriminating between if they know it and if they don't. That's just one example. What you want is if a student knows it to get it perfect, if they don't know it to get 0. I mean, that's mathematically, that's what you're looking for. Okay, so we want discrimination indexes that are going to show us, is this a good question or isn't it? If a student does poorly, you want them to get every question wrong. They don't know the content. If you look at your discrimination index up there, what this is doing, this is the best of what's on the screen. This is the best question in terms of discrimination index. The higher the number, the better. The lower the number, the poorer the question. And if I scroll down here, oh, there's no way. Okay, well, there's a way. So on this test, what happens is, if your discrimination index is low enough, like if it's negative, it's going to make this question red. The reason there's no red up there, I don't remember doing this, but apparently I went through and modified the questions that had low discrimination indexes. It allowed me as a teacher to reflect on how I ask questions. Is there something about my questioning that's confusing? For a student, is there something about the way it's worded leading them to an incorrect answer? It allows me to adapt my questioning. The second thing, the standard deviation. This is a mean standard deviation, not just a sigma standard deviation. So this tells us what's the range of answers, excuse me. Bigger the number, the wider the range. If you've got a low standard deviation, everybody answered the same thing. Now the nice part is, everybody has a uniquely generated test. So if they didn't all answer A, they all answered the option that was the same. In one kid's test it was A, in the next kid's test it was C, in the next kid's test it was B, in the next kid's test it was A. So it shuffles your options. Like I said, pretty much eliminates, hey, what'd you put for that one? They're different. Now, let's see what else I wanted to hit here. Another part of this, and this is where we are trying to get a little growth. I gotta go back here. So there's a gradebook in here. The gradebook has all students. I mean, it's kind of like Infinite Campus, or just set up as a spreadsheet. But if I go into the gradebook, what's going on? This now allows me to look at every student, and right now what I do is we'll leave it so you can't see any of the scores, but all of the assignments we have all year are in that gradebook. When I give an assignment, I don't have anything due until test day. I tell them it's kind of like practice. You can practice playing West Des Moines if you'd like to practice playing West Des Moines until you play them. But once you play them, stop practicing for them. So they can practice until they take a test. On test day, while they're taking the test, I go in here. This mimics my Infinite Campus gradebook. All I do is start with this student, look at one screen, type it into the next screen. Look at one screen, type it into the next screen. Now, if we can generate some grassroots interest, there is the ability to get Moodle to talk to Infinite Campus, real time. Okay, it's been done. The problem is it costs some money. But if districts are willing to do it, we can support that, and we can allow a teacher to go from, this is your Moodle course, to your Infinite Campus populating in real time on its own. So if any of you are interested, please shoot Denise an email, myself an email, or Evan Abbey. It's something that we're trying to gauge the level of use. In terms of a teacher, there are very few products I would use more. Maybe a projector and a computer. But really, if a student takes an assessment and it automatically updates, I mean, faster than you can get into Infinite Campus, now you're really adapting. You're working to put what the student's doing and give them good, solid feedback pretty much instantly. I know there was a lot there. Wasn't here to teach you about it, because teaching takes a long time to go through all of this. Okay, this has been 3 years of me working at it as a teacher. So it's just in my free time. Like I said, last night I was reading about it. It's not something that you just end up with. But there are opportunities to be taught. There are opportunities to work on this stuff. There are opportunities for teachers to collaborate with each other. I just sent a guy an email from New York 3 days ago. He has an awesome Physics 1 page. I have about 500 Physics 1 questions. So I sent him an email, hey, I'll trade you your questions for your page. His response, let me get back to you. Okay? If the answer is no, the answer is no. That's fine. I'll try it again some other time. I emailed someone last year about chemistry. She had 1,200 questions. I was just setting up a chemistry page. I don't teach it this year, but last year I did. I said, hey, can we talk about maybe sharing those questions? She shot me the link or the file that was the backed up 1,200 questions. I uploaded them to my Moodle page. Boom. They're not perfect. Yeah, you get a question here and there and say, yeah, I think that one's wrong. But you change it once and it's changed forever. So it allows so much collaboration as well amongst not just the person you're teaching with, but also people all across the country. With that, do you guys have any questions?
Oh, one thing, we do have a few people on Zoom, so when you ask a question, please raise your hand. We ask you to use the microphone so they can hear the question. Thank you.
Is this something that anyone has access to, or do you have to actually like enter all your students at the beginning of the year in order for them to have access to your page?
Okay, great question. So an option with that Infinite Campus connection is that they would automatically populate to the course they're in, and they would update in real time. So if a student was taken out of a course, they would be taken out of the Moodle course. That would only be if we had this Infinite Campus Moodle connection. Right now, you have to manually do it, but there's a way to automate that. So what I have my kids do on day 2 of class, they come in, they log in with the Google button, so they all have Google accounts. They click this Google button, they go to my site, they type in the period they're in, so for period 1 it'd be period 1, and that automatically puts them into the period 1 group and it organizes my gradebook to reflect my Infinite Campus gradebook. So it takes a little work on the front end. If we go to this right here, Beyond the Basics, there is everybody has access to this page, by the way. It's linked on the version of the itinerary you have right there. I don't remember if it's on.
Craig, while you're looking
Yeah.
at that, he is talking about he's using AEA-PD Online's Moodle server, which any district has free, in the state, has free access to use. And so it's through that we're talking about the connection to Infinite Campus, and that we're talking about the connection to using Google. If you have your own server in-house, you may have to talk with your tech person about the opportunities that server allows for getting your students in.
This is a link. It's on the miscellaneous slide, or a tab at the top. This is a link. It's a video of me talking about how you can go through and group students and how you can set that up. It takes about 15 minutes. And once you set it up, every student will automatically be grouped into that group in Moodle. But like I said, if you're interested in the connection, we should talk.
Any other questions for Craig?
I'll go.
You can change the questions, you can change this and that. Can you change a profile for a kid with an IEP without changing everybody else's?
Give me an example of what you're looking for. More time on a test?
More time, maybe less options for a multiple choice question?
So more time, yes. I haven't found a plugin for less options, but that would be very beneficial. So it's something that if we can't find, and this is where the growth comes in, if enough people are using this, there's going to be more state support to have people write plugins. If you wanted something, then you could get a hold of that person and say, what do we need to do to make that happen? And it happens around the country. There's 15 million Moodle users worldwide. And of those Moodle users, some of them are coders and they make plugins. And those plugins do what you want. So if it doesn't exist, it could. Great question. If any of you think of any other questions after this, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm not a big Twitter user, so I didn't put that on there, but I do check my email more often. It's just my first dot last name, craig.mohr@southeastpolk.org.
And if any of you are interested in setting up accounts or working through this, this is what AEA-PD Online does. I'm Denise Crafting, and that's what I do. You're welcome to email me, and I'll ask Rob to put that information on the agenda. If you're interested in a course, whether for yourself, just a test, and some of your districts already are part of our system, please let us know. We're here to help. We can help with the blended learning with your instructional tech from your district.
Denise has been a huge help to me, and Evan Abbey has also been a huge help to me. So they're great resources to interact with if it's something you're looking at going down that path. Otherwise, thanks. I appreciate it.